Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Nicole, and I'm the Senior Director of Community Engagement at the PKD Foundation, and I am delighted to moderate today's conversation talking about PKD. With us today, we have Joy Branch Smith. Joy is our social media specialist, and she will be monitoring social media, and she'll be jumping in from time to time to share comments and questions that we're receiving from our Facebook audience. For the past few months, Joy has been engaging our community on social media around our topic today, talking about PKD. And we're kicking off March's Kidney Month today by sharing some of what we've been learning and also addressing some of the challenges that have been shared on social media over the course of this campaign. So we appreciate you for taking some time out of your day to join in on this very important conversation. And before we get to meet our panel, we just want to make sure that everyone in our audience can engage with us over the next 60 minutes. To comment or ask questions, just simply put your questions or your comments into the comment on Facebook, and Joy will be watching. So we want to hear from everyone today. Now let's meet our three panelists. With us today, we have Kelly Wever. Kelly is the lead transplant social worker at SSM Health St. Louis University Hospital. And Kelly has also personally walked the journey of chronic illness and transplantation over the past 3 decades. We also have with us Amy Pickle. Amy was diagnosed with PKD in 1995 when she was 23 years old. Amy's father has PKD, and one of her children has been diagnosed with PKD as well. And Amy also lost her grandmother to PKD. Amy believes it is important to take an active role in managing your care by staying up to date with the latest research, enrolling in clinical trials, and reaching out to others for support or advice. And then we also have Tara Morrison. Tara is 22 years old, and she recently graduated from college, and she's now living in Chicago. So let's start our conversation today by talking about why are we talking about PKD? Kelly, let's start our conversation with you. Can you share your perspective on the importance of being able to talk about a chronic disease such as PKD, and also maybe shed some light on why is this sometimes a challenge?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm really excited. We're going to be talking about PKD and bringing it to light, bringing more awareness. I think anytime you're living with a chronic illness, it's always hard to talk about. There's lots of factors. Even when we're surrounded by people, we can still feel very isolated. It affects so many aspects of our lives. So even if we have family members that have the same diagnosis, we can still feel isolating. So I'm glad we're kind of having this conversation today. And I hope people on Facebook kind of chime in and type in the chat as well. But I mean, I think the most important thing to note is that you're not alone. I know sometimes, it can feel that way when you're isolated, on days when you're having pain or you can't get up and do the things you want to do, but, you're not alone. There's a whole community of people that are here to help and support you. So even if it's not your closest family or friends, because sometimes those are the hardest people actually to talk to sometimes, there is a whole community of people that are here for you and help support you. I think one challenge about talking with those that are closest to us, those loved ones and family members, is that, we don't want them to worry about us. We don't want to burden them with more problems, or if we're having any exacerbations, bringing that to light can sometimes be obviously emotionally difficult on them too. So then it's easier for us to not talk about it or kind of cope in other ways. But it's really important, I think, for us to just recognize just kind of talking things through, even if it doesn't make a whole lot of sense sometimes. Just to have somebody to talk to reach out to is really important. I think generally our loved ones do want to know what's going on, even when it's hard news. Even if it's bad news, they want to know what's going on. And another thing is, if it's family or friends, I think sometimes another challenge is that sometimes people might not want to bring it up to you for any number of reasons. But then once we kind of bring it up and talk to them about it, it gives them a little bit of a go ahead then to bring it up again, or permission to talk about it again. And I think just kind of overall, when we have somebody to talk to, it can kind of decrease our stress and, our feelings of isolation and loneliness and depression and anxiety, and any other kind of, feelings that we're having that are a little bit harder to go through. It's nice to talk through those things with somebody to kind of help reduce all of those things. So I hope that helps.
It does. Thank you very much. I think sometimes we just don't think about all those things. So we appreciate you sharing them and getting that on our radar. I think we should turn this over to a patient perspective. So we'll start with Amy. Amy, would you mind sharing a little bit about your experiences with us?
Sure. I've always been an open book my whole life about everything. So PKD is a huge part of who I am. So I talk about it. And I'm not out there yelling, guess what, everybody, guess what my PKD is about today. I don't do that, but I don't shy away from it either. So if there's, and as our 22-year-old's going to find out, as you age, like I am, and you get, you're going to have to talk about it more because the exhaustion, the cyst rupture, I'm showing symptoms more outwardly than I used to. So I'm just very open. Well, I'm having kind of a bad day today or this, but the thing I've learned through all of this is attitude is so important. And I learned from the best. I learned from my dad. My dad never one day felt sorry for himself. It was like, sis, this is the thing we deal with. Everybody's got something. This is our deal. It could be so much worse. And that's kind of been my whole attitude. It could be worse. So I've never had this, oh, poor me feeling. I don't want to talk about it. It just comes up as a fact. It's not anything I plan or don't. Now, when I talk about it for the fundraising, for when we did our PKD walk and I went to our elementary schools for a coin drive, that brought awareness. So talking about in that aspect brought awareness to people who I have found most people never heard of PKD, even though it's the most common genetic illness. If they don't have it or know someone with it, they've typically never heard of it. So by talking about it and doing things, that brings awareness. But on a personal level, my mental health is talking about it is crucial to that because you're going to have bad days, but then you also have good days that you can share with people. And like she just said, you have to have that person that you can kind of tell everything to, because I kind of water down things for my mother and my husband, but my best friend knows the good, bad, ugly. I call her crying, call her laughing. And I have to have that person. And I was at a doctor's appointment and I'd gotten kind of a bad lab report and I started crying. I immediately shut it off and said, okay, now what? And my doctor said, why did you do that? And I said, do what? And he said, why did you just shut down? He said, you've got to talk about this. And he said, do you have someone you can? And I said, yes, I am. I have a best friend I tell everything to. And he said, I tell every patient, you've got to talk about your feelings. You've got to fix everything, your mental, your physical, and talking about it is, for me, very important and helps me deal with it. And again, I'm not telling strangers I meet on the street, I've got this illness, but if it comes up, I'm going to explain it. And then when my son was diagnosed, he was 4, and that's typically with AD, PKD, there's no diagnosis that early. However, he had some cyst rupture and everything. So at 4, we had to teach him how to talk about it because he can't play certain things on the playground anymore. He can't really eat hot dogs or drink pop or things. So we had to teach a 4-year-old to explain. And I learned from my dad, and I instilled in my son, we don't feel sorry for ourselves. It could be worse. So I feel like that has helped me overall with everything. So I can't imagine not being able to talk about it because it's just who I am. And it makes you feel like you have a little bit of control, because with a chronic illness, with no cure, you sometimes feel you have no control over your own body. So I think talking about it makes me feel like I'm in more control, I think. So if there's, and I ever told my friends, family, I don't mind questions at all. I will say the one question that someone asked me that made me stop and really think was, ask me if I felt guilty for having children. And that was hard because I never thought about that way, because I never felt anything bad toward my parents for having me after my dad. So that was something I actually had to talk to a professional about, because of the guilt is, oh my gosh, what did I do? But then my son's pediatric nephrologist said, "Are you sorry you were born?" I said, "Well, no." And he said, "Your son's not sorry he was born. Get over that." And so my son, who's now 24, has the same attitude of, "Yep, we got it, but it could be worse. Let's move on." So I think that's just my overall take on it is, for me anyway, talking helps a lot, especially when this illness is such a big part of who you are. So.
Thank you, Amy. I really appreciate you sharing all those experiences. I love that your doctor empowered you, to share your feelings. I think that's so important. And also you really hit on a lot of different parts and pieces really of talking about PKD. It's about your children, about so many different things. And so I think this is such a big conversation, and I love that you touched on all of that. Thank you so much. Tara, we'll hand it over to you.
Hi, my name is Tara. I'm 22. I'm originally from Connecticut, but I recently graduated from Miami University and I'm now living in Chicago. I was officially diagnosed with PKD in summer of 2020. However, before I was officially diagnosed, I always kind of knew about this disease. I knew my grandpa had been through 2 transplants. I know my mom has it, my aunt has it. So it wasn't really a huge surprise, but I was always kind of told, like, don't even think about it until you're like 40 or 50 and start showing symptoms. Just don't even think about it. But that all changed when I moved to Chicago and I saw a new nephrologist who was able to do some more tests. And from that, I was deemed at risk for rapid progression. So a couple months ago, back in October, I started GnRQ, which is a medication to hopefully slow the cyst growth of people with PKD. I think the biggest change for me since being diagnosed is just kind of trying to wrap my head around and plan for something that could potentially happen years down the road. I feel totally fine now. So thinking, I have to start prepping for something kind of is definitely really scary. It's not just like waking up with a cold and going to the doctor, getting medicine and feeling better. So that would definitely be the biggest change for me. I feel very lucky. I have an amazing support system. My parents, my sisters, family, friends, who a lot of them I think have joined the call. I feel like my friends may not know as much about it, whereas my family is very knowledgeable, but both sides have been amazing. And I know I can talk to any of them about anything. So I've been very lucky with the support system I have. Kind of like what a few of the other members were talking about before, talking with family can sometimes be, I don't want to say difficult, because I know at the end of the day, I can talk to them about anything, but with me moving to Chicago and being so far away from everyone, I don't want them to have to feel worried about me while I'm so far away from them. So that kind of always is in my head about thinking about stuff like that. But again, I'm very lucky, I can call any of them at any time. When I was first diagnosed, it definitely went over my head and I didn't want to think about it. I was told I didn't really have to think about it that much, but it definitely got real after I had to start this medication. And I remember a conversation I had with my mom. I think it was after one of my doctor appointments, and I was just bawling, crying, and I was really, really upset. But through talking to her, I kind of realized how grateful I am to be aware of this medication and, have a community like the PKD Foundation and be monitored by great doctors. So I feel very grateful and lucky about that. And, in the moment when you're told bad news or something, for me, the first thing is to break down and completely shut off. But again, I'm thankful for my parents and my family and my friends to have kind of an outlet to talk to about anything really. And another piece is just, it also taught me to be proactive about my health and monitoring, kind of being aware of what's going on within the PKD community. And I'm also grateful to be a part of this discussion today.
Thank you, Tara. I appreciate you sharing. I heard a couple of things that I just think are so important. And I know that are some of the comments that we receive. You talked about your support system, which I think, is super important. And I have a feeling that Kelly might have some comments about that as well. and changes, over time, because you don't really know what to expect. And so talking about things maybe can help, with some of the changes that you really don't know that will come up in a course of dealing with chronic illness or PKD. So I really appreciate your perspectives and for you sharing your experiences. I know that's going to be helpful to others. Kelly, let's turn this back over to you. And could you talk a little bit about some tips around starting a conversation about PKD?
Yeah. So I think obviously plan A would be to kind of have a plan, when we talk to our family and friends, try to have a time when we're not distracted, when there's not many interruptions. That's kind of plan A. I mean, I think obviously that kind of gets thrown out the window sometimes and we just need to talk to somebody right away. But I think it's important to kind of think at least a little ahead of time if you can on what you do want to share, what you don't want to share. Just being kind of genuine and honest with what you're going through with your feelings, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, because obviously chronic illness affects all aspects of our life. So, just being kind of prepared to figure out what you want to talk about and what you don't want to talk about. I think if we have hard news to deliver, that's always challenging to do. So just kind of make sure you're emotionally prepared as well. There might be some hard questions to answer. So I think the more that we're kind of emotionally and mentally prepared to share whatever news or feelings that you're having with somebody, I think can be helpful, so that we're not quite as caught off guard, and it's okay to kind of let them know what you're struggling with, what you're juggling with, and just kind of keeping it real. I think sometimes also there are some things that, you're not able to do right now, or maybe you fear you're not going to be able to do in the future, which I think we kind of hit on a little bit with the other members. Sometimes we're not sure what the future looks like. We don't know what things are going to look like months or years down the road. So just even talking that out, I think is helpful too, because there are things that, maybe we're fearful of, some milestones we're going to miss or big events that we're going to miss. And even kind of what goes with that too. Sometimes we can have some losses, these things that aren't really called losses by our society, but they are. I mean, if we lose a job because, we're in the hospital or we have, too much pain and we can't go in and we lose a job, that's a loss. I think the most important thing is to start the conversation. So some people are really comfortable talking about it and some are not. Some are more private. And I think so that you feel supported, just finding that go-to person, somebody you can talk to. It doesn't have to be the family or friend that you're closest to. Just a go-to person, kind of like Amy talked about, that go-to person that you can call after the doctor's appointment, that you can reach out to on a hard day, that you can text, call, whatever it is that helps you the best, is somebody to reach out to.
So we have another comment, Kelly, and I think this one might be something that you could help us address. This is from April, and she shared that really she's just going through a very rough time as far as some health complications that have been going on after transplant, having to change health professionals, in the midst of her care. And also just with all of the things that she's going through, she's 2 hours away from her transplant team. And also her son is really upset and worried because his mom is so sick. Can you give us any tips to share with April in dealing with the things that she's going through?
So April, let me just say, I'm sorry for what you're going through. I know it can be really hard when you're kind of far from your care team, and if you've had a transplant and then you're far from your care team, as well as family dynamics. So I always encourage pre-transplant, post-transplant patients, again, to have some kind of support. For transplant, we require you have a support system. That's how important it is to have a support system. So I know that, the care team may not be as accessible as, we would like, as ideal. So I would encourage you to find somebody in your community to reach out to, on top of obviously forums like this, but I always encourage people to talk to somebody even on the outside too, like a counselor. So finding somebody in your community that you can just kind of talk through these feelings with. There are counselors that are available for people with chronic illness specifically. And even now there's so many telehealth options. So you can find a counselor that if you're okay with telehealth, there's more options out there too, versus finding somebody in your local community to go in person, whatever you're kind of most comfortable with. But I think talking to outside sometimes is really helpful. Even for your son, it might be helpful for him to kind of talk with a school counselor or a counselor of his own that can kind of play through some of these, play therapy for him or something to that effect, where he can kind of talk it out with somebody besides his mom, because sometimes that's hard for him to truly express how he's feeling about his mom. Sometimes it's nice for a kid to have somebody on the outside too to talk with. I hope that helps a little bit. Reaching out to somebody on a professional stance, I think is always helpful.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because I think sometimes that's hard to do, and it's good to be empowered to reach out and get help when you need it. Kelly, I think the next question I have for you is, can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts around when is a good time to talk to others and tell them what you're going through?
Again, I think it really is a personal decision. It really varies, because we do have people that are comfortable talking about it at any time, anywhere. And then we have people that are very private about their diagnosis. They haven't shared with their family what's going on, and they have somebody physically here with them, but nobody else in the family knows what's going on. So I have extremes of one side all the way to the other side. So you have to figure out when the best time for you is. When are you comfortable sharing your diagnosis future may look like? Again, we know there's a lot of ifs. So you have to just kind of figure out on your own when you're emotionally and mentally prepared to share, and again, what you want to share. And then when you do talk with family and friends, again, keeping kind of real and genuine and being honest, even if it's hard to hear, is really important. I mean, just trying to keep it as real as possible. And if you don't know something, it's okay. I don't know what the answer is to that. At the end of the day, the win is really up to you.
I think that's good. A good tip. Thank you. Joy, do we have any more comments or questions from the audience that we need to address?
Excuse me. Yes, we do. So we have one comment from Kristen asking us to talk about the peer mentor program.
Oh, excellent. I'd love to talk about the peer mentoring program, this is a great time, because we talked about, finding someone if you don't have someone in your own support system. So the PKD Foundation does have a peer mentoring program. We have mentors that have experience with PKD across disease progression. So we have some that are living with PKD and haven't had a transplant yet. We have mentors that have been through the transplant process and are living life after transplant. We have a caregiver. So we hope that we can address, many experiences that patients or caregivers are feeling that they'd like to chat about. So we have a form on our website. We can stick that in the chat or the comments, Joy, and share that with everyone. And if you're interested in being paired up with a mentor, I'd love to hear from you.
We do have one more question.
Okay.
This is from John Holmes, and they ask, I'd love a discussion on diet and maybe some kind of guidance.
Well, that is probably a conversation we could have another hour because there is so much to unpack as far as diet goes. So I guess without giving, specific advice, I think it might be helpful though, if Tara or Amy, could you share anything about your struggles with figuring out how to manage diet and lifestyle and how you, I guess, approach that as you live with PKD?
Just being aware of what's in your food and what you should and shouldn't eat. Sodium, animal protein, just common sense type things. But things you don't realize have, I'm thinking back to when my son was diagnosed and I had to change what he, couldn't have hot dogs, and there are certain things, occasionally, of course, but you see what I mean? So it's a learning curve. And then now as I'm, progressing and my kidneys are very large, I don't eat near as much. And so over last year, I've lost a lot of weight. And so people haven't seen me, oh my gosh, what's wrong? And so that opens a conversation of part of the illness. I'm not eating right because I feel full, and all that. And I kind of just try and go, oh, it's not that big of it. I'm okay. So that's kind of where I'm in my struggle. Tara, are you having starting now at 22, are you noticing diet restrictions or?
The biggest thing would definitely be limiting like sodium intake, which I feel like my mom and dad did a pretty good job about when we were growing up. Just like even when I go shopping now, since I'm out of home, like even butter, I'm like, oh, normally I would just pick up butter, but now I look for like unsalted. So now it's just little stuff like that. But for the most part, mine would just be watching my sodium intake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that I like what you said too, Amy, about just being aware, and being aware of what's in the foods that you're eating, because that's not something we all think about, all the time. We have a lot of resources on the PKD Foundation's website that address diet. So I would encourage everyone to go to our website and search around for diet content and also webinars and things like that. And please send us your questions if you have specific diet questions. We can try to help find a resource. I thought we might turn back for a minute to Amy and Tara and see if they have any other thoughts that they want to share around some of the questions that we've received. Just day-to-day management, like Kelly was talking about, be organized. I think, Amy, you hit on that a little bit early in your story about, just being on top of things and being a good advocate for yourself. Maybe that's the question. Like, how did you learn to be a good advocate for yourself?
Honestly, my dad, I kind of followed his path. He's just matter of fact, gets it done, takes care of himself, and has been on me. Take care of yourself. There's no cure. We have to slow it down. No, how you eat, how you live your lifestyle, things like that. And something I meant to say earlier and I didn't is having that, if there's, we talked about the importance of having someone you can talk to, but if you can find someone with PKD that knows what you're going through, that you can call and I don't know how many times I called my dad. This is what this feels like. Do you think it's a cyst? Do you think is it an ER trip? And again, he's not a doctor, but he's been through it. And so he tell me what he thought I needed to do. And I can't imagine not having that. And I also have a friend she's already had her transplant, and I, messaged her, what was your creatinine when they sent you to the transplant center, to be warned. So that is truly a gift. If you can find, and this peer mentoring thing through the foundation is wonderful. And I can't say enough good things about having someone that is going through or has gone through it. If you get someone even a little bit further ahead in their journey, so they can, you can ask them, oh, this happened, do I need to be worried, or type of thing, that's just my experience that has helped, having someone that's going through it, has been through it and knows it. So,
I think that is the beauty of the connections, that we can make, that we do have, individuals connected with our organization that are willing to share their experiences, like the two of you. And it's kind of an aha moment sometimes, when you're talking with someone and you're sharing something that you've experienced, it's validating maybe. Amy, would you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you're talking to someone else and you're sharing and they're like, oh yeah, I've had that experience.
That's what that
okay. All
yeah,
right,
exactly.
a little bit. Yeah. Tara, what about you? Oh, sorry, Amy, I think I cut you off.
No, I was done.
Okay. Tara, anything from you that you'd like to add to that?
I don't know if I have much to add. I mean, as of now, I'm pretty much symptom free. So it's kind of just getting to the doctor every 6 months for my checkups, and then the lab work for GenRQ. But yeah, and not too much to add to that. Just kind of make sure I do all my routine checkups and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's okay. I think, I've been working with here at the foundation for 12 years. And one thing that just really comes out of all the conversations that I have is being a good advocate for yourself. And I think both you, Tara and Amy, you've shared that today during our conversation. You're both in different places, but you are advocating for yourself. And, I think that's super important.
Okay, and I have one more comment, and it says, my sister is in need of a transplant. How do I help support her in finding options for her?
That's a great question. Just being aware as a a care partner with someone that's going through transplant is being aware of the process, finding out what that evaluation looks like, timing, those kinds of things, and then just being there, to talk about it. It's a long process, it's kind of drawn out, and it's a little stressful to go through that. So I really think just being there for someone, and also being aware of the process and kind of understanding. And each transplant center can be a little bit different. So contacting the center and understanding what their process looks like. Before we go, I think we have a few more minutes. We got a couple of comments that, ahead of our talk today, our conversation today, and I was curious if Amy or Tara might have any experiences that they might want to share. We had one person that shared that really she's just trying to embrace having PKD. Amy, you talked about being positive and how difficult sometimes that can be, and that as positive as she tries to be, sometimes anxiety just creeps in. And, she has questions about her cysts or about pain. Will she have to be on dialysis? Will her kids have PKD as well? So I thought, Amy, you might be able to address that a little bit, because I think you have a really positive outlook. Does anxiety creep in? And if it does,
oh, absolutely.
handle that.
Absolutely. And I will say, it's a powerless feeling being told when you have a disease, there's no cure. You just go until you die or have a transplant or die, so it's, you just feel powerless. A way to get power back: stay involved, stay up on research. I can't even tell you how many studies I've been in. That's how I got on GnRQ so long ago, before it was FDA approved, and I've been on it, which is, I'm convinced, why I haven't had to have a transplant yet. That on research, join the PKD Foundation. There are so many resources through them for you, and volunteer. I'm having a great time being a volunteer with them and learning, doing things. Just take some of the power. Make your decision. I'm going to be in this study or that, and I'm going to seek out things that could possibly make it better, instead of just waiting for the next doctor appointment to be told I'm more sick than I was last time. Stay active, walk, eat right, the cliche things, get outside. So, it's true, and that does a lot for your mental health and your outlook too. Being outside, and talking, and, don't lose track of your hobbies, or, try not to change your lifestyle to where you're not getting your enjoyment out because you're worried about dealing with the disease, if that makes sense. But just take some of the power back by, the emails I get from the foundation of the latest studies or the research. It is so exciting, and it gives you hope, especially when you know your child has it, and you think, oh, my son's not going to have to worry about because this is going on. So that's where I get a lot of my hope, is from the foundation and things like that. So that's my big recommendation.
I love that you said take the power back. Because that resonates with me, and I'm sure it resonates with others. And research gives you hope, because it speaks to what's going to be available for generations in the future. Joy, did you have any? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
When I was first diagnosed in 95, the nephrologist said, there's a drug that has slowed down the cyst growth. It's in rats. And this is the drug I'm on. It's just, back in 95, it was still in lab trials. And so, but he gave me that kernel of hope. There's going to be something that once it's, in FDA approved, it's going to slow this down so much that you're going to, have much better quality of life. And so from then on, I had that hope. So that was real important.
Yes, hope. That's one of my favorite words.
Exactly.
Yes, I always perk up when I hear the word hope, because research, that's where the hope is.
That's true.
Joy, any other comments that we have that we want to address?
Just one, and this is from Bress. It says, going through the transplant process is an emotional roller coaster. It is long, stressful, and exhausting. Be there to listen, provide meals if possible. I just thought that was nice.
Yes, that's a great suggestion.
Thank you.
Because yes, definitely. That always makes people feel better when they have a great meal on the table and someone's thoughtful to bring it. Perfect. I think there was one more comment, Joy, that we had ahead, and I'll bring that up really quickly. Someone mentioned hiding PKD for a long time because she was afraid of missing work or having pain episodes, and now hides it sometimes because she's afraid, about what people think of in the future, relationships, those kinds of things. So any comments from our panelists about that, hiding PKD, probably for different reasons, depending on where you are with PKD, maybe?
I've never hidden it. It's who I am, part of who I am. If someone has a problem with it, that's their problem, not mine. I don't go out and go, hey guys, we just met, I have PKD. I don't do that. But if something comes up with, no, that's not a good, I have polycystic kidney disease, but I've never shied away from it or hidden the fact. I was a teacher for years, and it got to be where I was having cyst rupture so much from being on my feet and all that, my para made a thing to tie ice packs to my kidneys. My kids were, curious what's going on, but I had to tell them, well, this is what happens. It's all right. I'll be fine tomorrow. Don't worry about it. So, that's, I guess, my answer to them.
Yeah. Thank you.
I did want to say, as we're wrapping up, if anyone watching on Facebook has any other comments that were left unanswered, I will be going through those and making sure everybody gets an answer. So I know that there are some that still haven't gotten to yet.
Perfect. I wanted to say too, Joy, thank you for reading through those comments, and we definitely want to hear your questions. I know for me, when I'm, listening to a webinar or part of something like this, my questions hit me about 10 minutes after it's over. So we do want to make sure that we have a way to address your questions. So feel free to send them to Joy. She'll help you get an answer. I think we're getting close to our time today, and I do want to be respectful. I know a lot of people probably are taking some time off of work today. So I want to thank our panelists, Amy and Tara. Thank you so much for sharing your experience to help others. I know that's made a difference to a lot of people today. And Kelly, thank you for your expertise. We appreciate your perspective on a lot of the things that were shared today, the comments, the questions. And to our audience, thank you for taking the time today. This was something relatively new. We haven't done anything like this. So we're hoping this is a great format moving forward for even more conversations about topics that are important to PKD patients. So please reach out, let Joy know through social media, or reach out to one of our, we have phone lines, we have emails, pkdcure@pkdcure.org is an email address we have. We'd love to hear your questions and your comments anytime. So thank you all today for your time today, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of your afternoon. Take care, everybody. Thank you.